Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this post-Christmas Monday. The great Don Fischer joining us now. Merry post-Christmas, Don. I hope you had a great Christmas and happy holidays coming up. How was the family extravaganza, as you put it in the off air?
Well, we had a great time. Like I said, my family, my sons and our grandkids all come down on Christmas Eve. We've done this for years now. There's about 16 to 17 people in the house at that point in time, and we spend the late afternoon and the evening enjoying one another socially and that kind of thing. And then on Christmas Day, my wife's family comes down, and they had 24 this year.
Holy cow.
So we had two days of housefuls of people, enjoyed ourselves immensely, had a pool tournament, as we have the annual Susie Lee Susie Lee Christmas holiday tournament. This is the 5th annual.
She definitely would not like to hear memorial on it. Then
no.
Memorial.
Well, one of her brothers tried to rename it to Susie's mom in the Kathleen Lee Memorial Tournament, and it's always been the Susie Lee Tournament. It's a Christmas holiday tournament. As they tried to rename it, we said no, it's not happening. Even though we love Kathleen immensely, and she's the matriarch of the family, we kept it in Susie's name. But we had just a great time. We had 24 people. Everybody, here's the thing. You have to play in the tournament. Everybody plays. Everybody. And I mean, there are so many people that don't play hardly at all. I don't play until the tournament arises. I've got the pool table in my house. Here's the thing about buying a pool table when because you always wanted one when you were young, right? And so I finally got into a position I could buy a pool table, put it in my basement, and now I hardly ever play. It's just ridiculous.
It's for other people. Yeah,
exactly.
It's like a ping pong table, but it just doesn't cost near as much as
exactly. But we had a great time. We had a wonderful Christmas, as we always do.
Well, that sounds great. I'm surprised. Too bad, because with the weather, man, there is no way I knew you were not just itching, crying to be outside playing golf, because the weather was unfreaking believable.
I know. Temperatures in the 60s. I never got out at all, which really bothers me dramatically. I did hit balls indoors one day. So I did that into a screen, but it's not the same as being out there. And I just didn't have enough time to get out and play, take 4 hours to play golf. I just didn't have the time with all the holiday stuff that was going on. And we still had a basketball game last week as well. So at any rate, we still had a great Christmas. It was fun. And I don't get the itch like I used to playing golf in the winter.
Once you stop.
Yeah, I used to want to play every day, that kind of thing. And I still would like to play every day, but the weather just destroys it. I mean, I literally, here's what I can tell you guys. Don't get old, because when you do, the knees start aching. All the joints are a problem, especially if it gets cold. And even though it's been warm here the last few days, it's still colder than you'd like it to be. And the body tells you, don't be stupid. Don't go out there, Dumbo. And I don't. Most of the time I don't.
I'm surprised that, and I know would be massive, but that someone has not built an indoor golf facility up here, from Indianapolis north for winter, because it would be freaking packed.
Well, it's interesting you say that. They had what they called a bubble on the south side here for a time. I don't know if it's still in business or not. I mean, you hit balls indoors into this bubble, and you had targets you could hit to, that kind of thing. But it was probably 100 yards. That was this bubble, covered about 100 yards. So you really couldn't do much, and I don't think it just didn't translate. Now you've got these screens that you can hit balls into, and it shows the fairway and that kind of stuff. And they're pretty accurate. I mean, the ones that are really good are quite accurate, and you can actually play golf indoors hitting into a screen. It's not quite the same, but you get the same feel. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, it's better than nothing, right?
Exactly.
Basketball wise, the Indiana Hoosiers got a little break. The last game was last Wednesday. They got to do a little Christmas break in between, but you got to come back. I hate this Wednesday game. I'll be honest with you. I'm like, I wish they just didn't have it. There's no games between Christmas and New Year. Just play that last one before Christmas, and it's done until after New Year's, man. But the Hoosiers coming back on Wednesday with another non-conference game before they get into conference play. I'm sure you feel the same, Don. You'd love to skip this game on Wednesday, but it's coming regardless.
Yep, it is. There's no question about it. The truth of the matter is, I don't like here's what I just don't like the idea that you'd go a week or a week and a half without playing a ball game. I think that's always a mistake. And so I understand why they're playing it. It doesn't fit.
Especially when you got a couple of days where you're probably not even doing anything.
Right, exactly. So they came back. The players got 4 days off, which is unique in itself. So they played last Wednesday. Then they didn't come back to school. They went home and visited with their families, had a Christmas with their families. Didn't have to come back until yesterday. And I assume they all got back and practiced yesterday at some point. So they've got 2 or 3 days to get ready for this North Carolina Asheville ball club, and then get ready for Penn State on Sunday of next week. So I get why you don't like it, and I understand that completely. If it was up to me and I didn't have to do those ball games, I probably wouldn't either. But at the same time, I think from a player's perspective and a coach's perspective, it's necessary.
The other thing I don't like is, and I know since they've expanded the Big Ten schedule, is putting those 2 Big Ten games up front and then splitting off. I'm like, all right, are you seriously, can you not squeeze in 2 other games in the entire Big Ten season together with all those games that they're playing? Because I don't think it's good to split it that soon. If it was in the middle, maybe for a game, you see that sometimes, but I don't like how they do that at the beginning.
Well, it's just different. It's different. Here's what your problem is, Jim. You're getting old. I mean, you just don't like change.
Exactly. Get off my lawn.
I mean, look at me. I'm up there, and I don't like anything that changes immediately. You've got to learn something new. You got to get into new technology, all those kinds of things. And I am the worst at technology. I'm an illiterate when it comes to technology. And I proudly say that because I'm too old to learn. I'm just too old to learn some of these new things that they're doing. That's why we have an engineer. I did my own engineering for basketball at any rate, my entire career up until about 5 years ago. And that's when we first got an engineer we had an engineer for football, always have had for football because it just requires that. But for basketball, we set up our own stuff. But I'm so out of it technology wise that I said, you're going to have to get me an engineer now in football and basketball, not just football.
Well, yeah, not even having just having a producer for not even technology wise, but having a producer, someone that can take so much off of your shoulders, right, like John does. It's nearly impossible. It would be impossible for me to do this show without John or someone like him. It's a quarterback, but you got to have a running back. You got to have a receiver. You got to have some guys to work with.
Right. Yeah, it's an important factor. There's no question. And like I say, Jake Robinson, who's our engineer, does a terrific job. And he'll pick up the phone and answer my questions as soon as I have one. And I always have a million because I have actually equipment in my studio here, or my office, I should say. I've got a little equipment here that I can do Zoom, and I can do phone interviews and those kinds of things. So this much of it I can run, but if there's anything that goes wrong, I can't fix it. So we're in trouble.
I hear you, man. A couple things. You used to do the Colts, right? How long did you do the Colts?
23 years.
Wow. All right. So how hard was it to do the Colts and the Indiana games?
Well, the hardest part, I just did preseason Colts games. I never did radio. I always did preseason television for the Colts from 1995 until, again, 5 years ago, 23 years worth at any rate. The biggest problem was that the football team for IU was always practicing. And at that point in time, the Colts were as well. So you had two different teams you had to go to practices for to get prepared. You had 90 players on a roster of an NFL team, two teams to get ready for with 90 players on. The preparation was just monstrous in that regard. And then, of course, they whittled it down to the last preseason game. You were down to like 60 guys or something like that, or 53 or whatever it would be. But anyway, you had so many guys to prepare for. And we had conflicts as well, because by the time the Colts started playing their exhibition games, Indiana was almost ready to play their first game of the season. So there were some games that I couldn't do from the preseason perspective. But we had generally speaking, we did at least 3 games every year, almost 4 most years, but there'd always be a conflict in there occasionally, because Indiana would play on a Friday and the Colts would play on a Friday, that kind of thing, in exhibition from the Colts exhibition schedule. So it was always difficult, but it was fun too. And I'm not a TV guy. I've got a face made for radio. And I did it for 23 years. I really enjoyed it. And the fact that they changed kind of the travel situation a little bit at the end and how you'd go. We had to go commercially the last year I did it. And I went, I don't want to do this anymore. So it worked out for me perfectly.
Great. It was great to have you on there, though. And then I enjoy listening to Matt Taylor now, another good friend of the show, great guy, and a big IU fan.
He's a great guy, and he's a great young man. First of all, that's the most important thing. He's just not a play-by-play guy. He's just a great person and really talented. I really like him a lot personally. Get along with him great, and I think he's a perfect fit for the Colts, no question.
Let's see. I don't want to miss too much. Of course, the Colts. How about the Colts big winning too? Woo.
Oh yeah. Well, those wins they've had the last few weeks have been critical. And it's been different. They've done it differently. I mean, the run game was so prominent with Jonathan Taylor, how great he's been this year. And he has just an average game, a less than average game for him, with 108 yards this past week. And Carson Wentz goes to town and pulls out a couple of tremendous plays toward the end of the ball game. You just like the way this team is playing, and they did it. Their whole offensive line, for the most part, was out. 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen were out of this ball game, and their tight end Jack Doyle was out, and yet they were able to find a way to win. And Darius Leonard, their best defensive player, was out. So you talk about a team that was put together with Band-Aids and wraps. It's a ball club that found a way to get it done. You just got to like what you see from Frank Reich and the coaching staff, what these guys have done, and how hard this team is playing right now.
Yeah, Frank Reich always looks the same. I don't care if it was the first game that they were losing, the third game they were losing, or the 8th game that they've won. It's like you just look over at him and he's like, all right, what's next? What's next? Yeah. It cracks me up. But I love that, because he's just thinking ahead. He's not thinking about what he just did. He's just thinking ahead. And that's, like you said, part of the reason why that they have been so successful. How about Juwan Morgan, an OG, playing on the same team. Juwan, how about Juwan Morgan, first of all? I never thought this guy would have had a chance to make the NBA. He's played on 2 different teams with 2 former teammates now.
Well, Juwan Morgan is just, first of all, another great guy, great person, terrific. He's a terrific guy to be around, a great teammate, a leader in every sense of the word, of how he goes about his business. And there's no question that Juwan, everybody questioned whether he could make it in the NBA, just because he's kind of an undersized big, if you know what I'm saying. That's certainly how he played at Indiana. He was an undersized big at IU. And yet he finds a way to get it done. And you just love that. And of course, OG's a great young man as well. Haven't seen as much of OG since he got into the NBA. So we didn't get to spend as much time with him, but I always liked him. I thought he was a little quirky, and he really was a little quirky, but a great guy to talk to. And I'm just glad for both those guys.
Yeah, he seems really quiet.
Yeah, I think he is, and he's not a guy that is a pointer to himself. He's one of those guys that acquiesces to the team and does the right stuff. You got to like him a lot.
CJ Gunn is coming, an Indiana recruit, he's been off. He gets to make his return on December 28th, so we'll look forward to seeing that.
Right.
When is it? Wednesday. Yeah. Wednesday, Indiana takes on UNC Asheville. They get back on track. So you have to get back to preparing for the game as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to it in the sense that I want to. Here's my biggest concern right now with this Indiana basketball team, and I'm going to talk to Mike about this tonight on the talk show, because we have seen this several times here in the first 12 games of the season. This is a basketball team that struggles to play a full 40-minute game. I mean, It started with Eastern Michigan in the very opening game of the season. Looked terrific at the outset. Second half, they let them back in the ball game. We've seen it at Syracuse. I mean, they played horribly in the first half. The second half, they played terrific. They played great at the first half against Wisconsin. Played horribly in the second half, and they did it again in this game against Northern Kentucky. Where they were just dominating the entire first half, held them to 60% shooting in the first half and 14 points, and then give up 47 points in the second half and allow them to shoot almost 60%. I mean, it's just crazy that this team can't put their foot on the throat, so to speak, and
that's
finish
exactly what I said. Yep, I said that very thing.
It's a 40-minute game. I mean, you cannot come out. And I'm going to ask Mike about this. I'm going to bring this up to him. Did you not ever hear what Bob Knight said were the most important parts of every basketball game? The first 5 minutes of the first half and the first 5 minutes of the second half. Those are the two most important parts. Why? Because you set the tone for the rest of the half. So you got to come out with an intensity level that is tremendous in both those 5-minute periods. If you do that, it translates to the whole half for the most part. I'm not saying it always works, but 98% of the time it does.
Well, it cost them the Wisconsin game, no question. They lost that last couple of minutes of that first half, allowing Wisconsin to knock, I can't remember if it was 5 points off of that 22-point lead. Well, and then they come out and they begin the second half and boom, and then they're right in the game. So exactly what you're saying. And then in the Northern Kentucky game, Indiana was up by 30 something at one point, and end up winning by less than 20, like you said. But it's the same thing. They've got to learn to just continue to play with that same level of intensity. And I don't know what the question is. Obviously, I'm not in practice every day, and with a lot of different faces, I don't know what the answer is. If it's the second unit, getting them to play better, or we saw Parker Stewart get kind of benched for a half in the last game, and he came in and played. What did he end up doing? I can't even remember. It's been so long ago.
He had 3 points. He just had 1 3-pointer, but he did come back in. He was being, I guess, tested mentally a little bit by the coach, because and Mike wouldn't say why he didn't start him. Why he didn't. I mean, he's had the same starting lineup the entire season up to this point, and all of a sudden he changes. And I said, after we got through with the interview, I said, how come Parker's not starting tonight? And he goes, it's an in-house scenario, so he's not going to sit there and put the kid on say, this kid's did something wrong, but you would assume something happened, he did play. So it wasn't like he was injured or anything like that. It was obviously some kind of punishment.
Yep. And so we'll see if they can come back and play 40 full minutes against this team on Wednesday. And they need to, Don, because it's the last tune-up. It's the last game. It's, if you want to call it an easy game or it's the last one that you're probably not going to just be really challenged from start to finish, because the Big Ten season starts in your next game, or it's already started, but it really gets going in the next game, and there are no breaks. So they need to do it in this game to show that they can do it going forward.
Well, North Carolina Asheville is a ball club that is really a veteran team. They're 8-5 on the season. They don't play. I mean, they play a mid-major schedule. There's no question about that. They've lost twice to Chattanooga. I guess Chattanooga must have a really good ball club this year. That said, this team has won, I think, 4 of their last 5 or something like that. They're a good basketball team. They got a really veteran ball club. They play 10 guys, and their 10 guys, all of them are, with the exception of one, are juniors or seniors or fourth year juniors, 5th year seniors, that kind of thing. This is a really veteran basketball team. So I don't think they're going to be intimidated coming into Assembly Hall, and Indiana's probably going to get a little bit of a battle from them, especially if they're not ready to play a full 40 minutes.
You got that right. Let's see. We said that tonight inside Indiana men's basketball at 7:05 at Southern Stone Restaurant at the corner of Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. Don Fischer, of course, hosting that with Mike Woodson. Make sure you come out there. It's always fun. That's the thing about Mike Woodson. He gets done and he goes over and sits down and eats, and he is so relaxed in any environment that I've seen him in. It's pretty mind-boggling.
Yep, he is. He's a different dude when it comes to coaches, and I like that a lot.
Absolutely. Well, Don, I cannot thank you enough, man. Appreciate you. Happy holidays to you and the family, and I
thank you.
Hope that you get to have a relaxing week at least. You got
Well,
one game.
we're looking forward to it.